I'm Leticia Lopez. I'm from San Diego Mesa College. Started there as a professor. I've been a professor of Spanish for 15 years there before transitioning into a program management role. And the reason why I did it is a little bit of, I'm just tired, harta, we say in Spanish, harta, seeing our Latinx students struggling in class, wondering, how could I make a difference beyond just the 2 or 3 sections of Spanish for Spanish speakers classes that I taught? And I felt like in my gut, I know that if we can multiply this tenfold across the board, just one person, and then have every coordinator do that, imagine the waves that will happen across campus. And you don't have to wait 10 years. It's all in here. It's all in here. You know, can you move the needle? Yes, you can. No, sí se puede. Se puede con ganas. Hay que echarle ganas, you know. And that, in Spanish, for those non-Spanish speakers, you gotta have that oomph, that need, that driving why, you know, of why we're doing what we're doing. So I started as a professional learning coordinator on our very first AHSIE Title V grant, and that was the Strengthening Institutions grant. And that's where I saw, wow, you can do a lot with course redesign. And then when we won a Title III grant, a STEM grant, I said, wow, well, we can embed a lot of these best practices into STEM. And I'm going to show you a few examples of how that was done. But again, using Dr. Garcia's model of topology, exactly what do we mean by outcomes? And I actually flipped it, because in her article, she starts with, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gina, you start with like graduation. You start with graduation and then employment. And I flipped that and I said, how do we attract students and faculty and staff to start thinking that we're an HSI from the student level while they're at the college? So student success, academics, and then let's make the progression toward graduation and employment. So that's how I created this. So 2012, we're designated an HSI. Okay, but really by 2002, so yeah, enrollment was about 15% Latinx, but we're looking at 2013, it's already what, 32%. In 2014, we applied for our very first HSI grant, which is not on the slide. That was our USDA grant. Our USDA grant was a small, so seed funding, $290,000, but that was enough to sort of launch us into the bigger grant, the Department of Education grant. So with the $2.6 million, we said, okay, let's replicate some of these best practices in our SEED Scholars Grant. And SEED stands for the STEM Engagement for the Enrichment of Diverse Students, which is a mouthful to say we want to engage our Latinx students in STEM in diverse ways that address food insecurity, so hunger and sustainability. Around those 3 majors, you don't have to be a STEM major, you know, in order to apply. So we mentored 3 cohorts of 20 students with that USDA grant. And it was just my co-PI and myself who did that. So when people say you need a lot of instructors to start mentoring students, that's not quite the case, you know? You just buy them coffee and, you know, round table, you know? And the mentoring can happen. And they're more engaged. They consulted with us for some major, like, life-changing questions. They revealed to us situations in which they said, look, I've never said this to anybody, but I have to choose between going to class or going hungry. You know, I go to class hungry half the time, so I can't focus. So with that kind of information, then you go to Student Affairs office, you build a food pantry, you get your Vice President of Administration on board, VPSS. Again, it takes a village. It's that one mentor, the one faculty mentor to connect with the student, to then identify the gaps on the campus, to say, why are our Latinx students not succeeding? Why are low-income students not succeeding? When we have that first-person narrative, then we go and we share that with those people who are the decision makers, who can help change really the course of the students' education and their future. And embed that then in the story that you want to tell for your next HSI grant. So pretty much the Title V grant wrote itself when we saw the gaps with our USDA grant. So again, just a little bit of historical perspective, because a lot of people say, oh, I got to start writing a logic model. It's not very fun. I got to find the coalition of the willing. And it just seems very austere that way, very fake. It's not organic. If we are truly going to live out our mission, the college's mission is simple. We are, or are becoming, the leading college of equity and excellence, because you cannot have one without the other. You cannot have excellence if half your population, half your student population is failing. If half are, 70% need acceleration. You can't do that, you know? When you celebrate diversity and when you celebrate what it means to have a diverse campus, in order to float all boats, in order to have this infusion of funds, you need to tap into the areas of most need. We need to share it to the world that we're an HSI institution. How do we do that? When we did our research to see how many colleges had logos, or if there's an official logo from the Department of Education about HSI, 0. There's nothing. So start there. Start with your Office of Communications. Embed that then in your campus website. You know, the campus is a military-friendly institution. Great, they have their own beautiful logo. And that's the same logo that's used across the board, you know, by many institutions. It's the same standard logo, but nothing for HSI. That's where we started. We embedded it in our website. We worked very closely with our Office of Communications, and we said, this is what we're doing in Title V, this is what we're doing in Title III, let's create a website. So logo, then website. If you don't have buy-in from across the board, it's generally going to be very difficult, you know, to really talk about your HSI-ness. You need to have those pockets on your campus of administrators, faculty, staff, and students who will be your voice, you know, who will be that voice box, you know, for you to say, well, what does it mean to be an HSI to me? You know, so right before the Haku conference, we had we filmed a few students in the STEM Center who answered the question, what does it mean to me to be at an HSI? Why am I here? You know, and a lot of them had to really think about that, you know. But then that self-reflection really produced these really beautiful statements. And then I encourage you to leverage YouTube. Put that on your website as well, you know, because administrators and faculty tend to listen to what their students have to say, you know, when it's non-scripted, you know. And again, getting them at that gut level is transformative. So if you as an instructor are not addressing the student need at their cultural level, like Gina was saying, embed more examples of their cultural background into like math problems, into science problems, into whatever class. I mean, easy. In my Spanish for Spanish speakers classes, I stopped teaching Colón, Cristóbal Colón. I'm embarrassed to say that. So that's Las Cartas de Colón. I said, no, they're going to start reading Bernal Díaz del Castillo. Start reading, you know, the perspective of, you know, the ones who called out, you know, the atrocities that have happened, you know, as they discovered the New World, right? They connected on a whole different level. But starting with something like that and knowing that that's what they want, this is where you start. This is how you identify, saying, I'm making progress to becoming more, to connecting more as an HSI. We're creating a space for students to be okay to fail, you know? And folks look at me like, what? You want them to fail? Like, we want them to experiment. We want them to go crazy with their ideas within, I know she handles my budget. She's like, but within certain constraints, man, okay? Don't go crazy on us, okay? But in these spaces, students feel like they can finally connect with each other in a place that is not, no one's grading them. No one's evaluating them. The faculty mentors are there to help students make poster presentations for professional conferences. They're there to show them and to talk to them and say, I was there once too. They love hearing those stories. And research shows that the more that students connect, the more they engage, the more you retain them, the more they're successful and they transfer. So how do we engage the community in these kinds of discussions? Well, you create a Latinx alliance, right? You create, if necessary, an ad hoc group. Why do you have to go through shared governance? If you know that it's necessary on your campus, you create it. You can do that next week. People often say, I hate coming to conferences because they always give me these things to do in 10 years. You're like, no, I gave you a task to do next week, right? So go do it. So go see who wants to join you on a Latinx Alliance, right? Again, go rogue if you need to, right? But create that. And then with our Latinx Alliance, we've been fortunate to be able to harness that brain power, that energy to say, what can we do to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in September? What are all the things we can feature about our HSI-ness? Heck, we opened a STEM center in September, and we put it there. We programmed it for September because we called it the HSI STEM Center, because let's not forget about who's paying for it, right? Department of Education, HSI money, right? I am not tired to pontificate about HSI comes before Title III, right? And comes before Title V. Talk about HSI first, okay? Then finally, how do you talk about all of this in a safe familia kind of environment, right? We had a tamalada, rented the clubhouse, right? Yeah, sometimes the best ideas too are shared over beers, right? Right, or margarita, or michelada, right? So you got that. You get your group together, you get your squad on, and you say, we got to start planning the next year, all right? So when I went to our president, I said, we're not doing enough to be HSI servant. You know what her answer was? Make it happen. Make it happen. How do you do it? What's your timeline? What are your outcomes? Who's on the group? Now, even if you go rogue, I need to know who's in your group, right? So what's the plan? What's the action plan? Because you could do a lot of this, but little action, right? So I gave her an August to June plan, okay? So we launched a lot of things over the year, including like Hispanic Heritage Month. We just launched, we pay for a lot of public service announcements with actually Title III funds. You could do that, okay? We use Title III funds to pay small public service announcements here and there, social media, on radio, on websites, and at the Latino Film Festival in San Diego, where over 75,000 people look at a screen and they see this message in Spanish. We're a proud Hispanic serving institution. We prepare our students for a successful future. All that's in Spanish. And then we put our website. How do we do that? Our HSI Title III grant, we hired a translator, a project assistant. With our project assistant, she translated a bunch of pages for us. At what, $17 an hour? Not bad. Not bad for a student worker who's just finished her second semester of Spanish for Spanish speakers classes. Okay? So again, just more examples. Okay, employment and graduation is the last one. Employment. So what do we do? Again, harnessing the Title III STEM Conexiones grant. We just won a San Diego Foundation grant, $75,000. Because we know that Department of Education won't let us pay for student stipends or for experiential learning or for bus trips or field trips. So we asked the San Diego Foundation, we competed for that, and we said, hey, look, we got a $5 million grant here, but we're quite limited in what we can offer our students. Can you pay for scholarships for our students to go on field trips, to go see what a STEM career actually looks like? Can you pay for them to go see Qualcomm, Northrop Grumman, and Biocom Illumina, and all these other companies, and 2 companies a day? Can you pay them 13 scholars, $5,000 a piece? And the rest, the semifinalists, the 35 semifinalists, they get a travel stipend. We pay for their breakfast, their lunch, their snacks, but they get to go on the bus, right? We're looking at about 50 people, 50 students going on this field trip. Every month, twice a month. They said, sure, checked it off, wrote us a check. Doing this, we're launching this. This is a pilot program for our workforce partnership now. We've embedded that into guided pathways. I know that's it's a loaded word for us Californians right now, right? But we have to show. If you can't show that these majors getting bio and chem degrees can land a career in 4 years, then you're wasting your time, right? But that's what we're trying to show with this, okay? A STEM Corps, we're doing the same thing with STEM Corps. We didn't win this NSF grant, we Masonized it. We stole this idea, and proudly so. I just running after our VPI who stole the idea, by the way. But he's like, do it. We have the STEM grant, you've got the counselors, you've got the faculty mentors, let's do it. I'm like, the STEM core program is designed to get students calculus ready in a year. But the carrot at the end of the stick, we offer them paid summer internships. That's right, paid summer internships. Look it up, STEM core. It's not just us, it's all over California. There's a lot of campuses in California that do that. And some of these partnerships are done with the following companies. So it's not just about doing well in your classes. How many students are you graduating? With all these embedded practices and support services between the classroom tutoring program, the peer navigator program, the summer cruise program, with all that success that we're having, how are we showing that we're moving the needle with our Latinx students? We have the data to prove that it's working. So we're coming at the end. We're on year 4 of the 5-year Title V grant. So now's the time to show that we've met our benchmarks, and we have, with flying colors. Now our dilemma is, what are we going to do for our the next Title V grant, right? Because there are very few gaps now, right? But yet we still have our work cut ahead of us. There's still quite a few questions, lingering questions on how we're going to continue this momentum and how we're going to scale up the programs that are very successful. We're teaching our students to fly, but we can't do it for them. We're showing them the path, but we can't walk it with them, right? But hopefully they see you the way we're trying to do with our Latinx Alliance. We're trying to show them who they can emulate 10, 20 years from now. And hopefully they too will have an impact the way our instructors have had with us, right? So all of you, I see you all as the change makers, right? That, I mean, where I was seated last year, I was here, and then hopefully next year, you're going to crash a party as well. And you're going to crash a presentation and say, you know what, we made this transformative change. And it's all because of you, okay? So I'm really hoping that that's where this is going. So thank you for your time.